Tangke tuji chaje razon zhong, xinjia mada tuja pongjomba, sirji lomba tabar jibaga, shakje jaba shakdong zhanzar, turjen chenje talo naro tang, maba mala chuje gambo ba. Pamudra jarwa ndrugongba, kajo lama nanje da chong she, danandana tsira tamje da lama lapa laye jisu zong. Laksan yung ten jamze nga la wang, ten de tong jen zhe pe ge le zu. Da ge lo chu sun zho war xin jie lab de su, chu lam den zho war xin jie lab de su. Lang zhu wa xie war xin jie lab de su, zhu wa yi xi sun jia war xin jie lab de su. Kan ge ten jen zhe war jiong, ga pa me pa jie, me pa qi pa me pa da me pa. Ungwa mi banzhu me ba ta de tu me dun je me zhu pa ni xie xie den ba zu bu san jie ma nan jie dan ba de la xiang zar du. Zhen jing za ba la ma ji jie gu zong do jie xin lan da 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 ge ju lan pe de da ge den ba dan sim jie jie dong. Jia jing bong zhe ba ra xin jie la de zo. Namka tang nyambe simjin tamchi che tondo tinde la name bayang dabar zubu sanje che gomang rambo che tobar sha. Di chi de dambe chu kange sinde do nyamsu lamar jo nyambe samba chanchu cho de simji ba tang. Chu nyimbe kunju da kunlong manarwa gone simban cha. Tela gang simbar sha chu ne. Choban Jikten Sumgön gombo teni jinzebe tamchu gongba jikpa teres.
Cultivate the motivation of bodhicitta, thinking that may all sentient beings, limitless as space, attain the state of unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment. And so with this motivation of bodhicitta, I think that I'm going to listen to the Holy Dharma and then engage in practice to cultivate such an unmistaken motivation. And the Dharma we are listening to is the Gong Chik, the Buddha's single intention by Jikten Sumgön.
Dan dal chom dun yoba nange drain da tagum chu chom de hyoba kabrewa. Tagum chu nange den dela da dorji song ni hyu tsabgi ke denk yo sayo den zang da drain dorji song dumba de hyoba kabre. Den dela da topa ji dawen chojo topa dang din ba song deke think yo bares dorji song ni hyo yo ra dorji song ni hyo teni ta tawas nana ta tawas du chirtang tawala namba sanje ba ke ta tawas nare teni yang chulo yin ka tawas nare yang na chen ji tin ka tawa dang teni tambe chu ka tawa la so ba chirtang ka tawa ka nam ya he ba mangbo yo ba res da de so na na teni da tawa tamje na ni da tawa chodu churba de garere sendu toba de demba de res ona toba serva de garese na nyam toba de demba nyam to de demba dan de la tawa chodu churba shugo yo ba res.
And so the text consists of 7 sections, and we are now in the 6th section on view, practice, and conduct. And this section consists of 20 Vajra statements, and we are now in Vajra statement number 7. It says, view is to be endowed with realization. So in general, there are many different kinds of views. There's the Buddhist view, and then there's the view of other religions. There's the worldly view. There's the view of the Holy Dharma. And so among all the different views, the supreme view is the view that is endowed with realization. And realization is also referred to as experience and realization. So to have that is the supreme view.
Tene da tawa sevanda kaps papala Jikten ke danda tara gombolo drop ke sumbarwa kanke tukzi nirzongne tawa thamje pangwo ser dampu chune tongze pa godam tela chansalo son ta lobon papa tenda sumare te yenzam tene jawa kaju bandala yang tawa serendu Jikten gypsy malare ba ke yang chi tene ngala tawa mi sumbala sobatang gypsy malare ba la tawa kareri shudu tene ngala tawa mi sumbala soba tanda ke sungyo bares
Regarding the view, Nagarjuna said, I prostrate to Gautama, who out of loving compassion taught the excellent Dharma to relinquish all views. And in the Kagyu lineage, when being asked, what is the view, Milarepa said, I do not have a view.
Tawa mi serendu tawa kandanda waje mi sungyo ri shubayina zungwa dan zimbar churbake tawas je tawan tumpu ndo waje ta nga tawan dayin sen tene tawalan zimba yo ba tawa shimba yo ba tawa te tabe cha songayina tene tawa yanda chagme ba yinzang tene tetso tawa mi shibtung teres yin yanda tara telo ba ke songrwa chakchin ganga manana marebe zungzin kunjar tabe jarpo te song zungwa yordan zimba sem ni tan trabe masam juba tan trabe te tabe te tene tawa thamjen angke ta tabe jarpo no chage yore song dan de tabe chi zungzin ni ke ni tan trabe masam juba da trabe tawa te che tabe shiri sirna ta pangja panglang da trawa gadrup da trawa kantar che thamar ke shipa nderang tene ngo chong ne te jindu tene thamar ke shipa ndirang to ne tene zangwa da ngimba la so ba namya zinto thamje da trawa tene gadrup la so ba namya yongso trawa nde tabu ko to ne tene songyo ko yo bares.
So to say, I have no view. So what is the meaning of saying that? So it is referring to a view that is related to grasping and grasped at object. So thinking that this is my view, for example, like having some kind of high view on something. So if one has such clinging or grasping at one's own view, then one doesn't actually have an authentic view. So that's the meaning of saying, I have no view. And Kyobpa said in the Ganges Mahamudra, to be free of the grasping at subject and object is the king of views. So it is the mind that is without any grasping. Without any grasping, there's no grasping mind and no grasp at object. It is a mind that is inexpressible, without thought, without word. That is the supreme or the king of views. The mind that is without a subject-object duality. And so, what kind of mind is that? A view. It is the view where one is free of anything to be abandoned and anything to be accepted. It is the ordinary consciousness that is sustained in the present moment. And within this ordinary consciousness is devoid of all concepts of good and bad and acceptance and rejection and so forth. So that's this supreme view we are talking about.
다 타머 그 시바 마주바 시반데 쫑운드 다 마행봉 안에 쫑진데리 대양 감보바게 손에 마행반에 산제 군제 람 송와 데르와 마행봉 안에 쫑고 요레스 단데 마행봉 안에 쫑운드 대양 텔로바게 송바 인도 당부 레진 중롱 초단자 세드 담보 때네 타마게 히반데 때네 종운드 다베 람상 제 타마게 히방을 마질로퍼 조트비아 칼레 카보 요레스 중롱 그쵸 세드 다초 가사가네 저릉고 당 tso네 바용 버촌도 솔라 때네 가사칼라 잠로양라오 당 때네 워다 당 tanda mambo yo de banda chi ruwa de tabachi tamar ki hiban de jongo samna yang ko namdo ki yang de a hyor ma hyor pa hyor de la so pa kanam yaring du de ti kapsu da bezor chi go yo barwa teni bar de chuo kanga tar jimbab somba yin da ti ke tamar maju shiban de ngang chong ne jun chong ne ka mantu ne tra jendu tani ta par de chuo kanga te ta chu mangbon zon de chu chimbo ji ru tani ko kale wura te za me ba tani jamling lang ne ba pu yorwa te ta tani tamar ki hibande tani kale ko namdo la so ba yang de chu chuk chu da wo je ma yin ba te ta ba ji
And so this ordinary consciousness must be sustained without any alterations. In the natural state must be sustained. And to do that, the mind has to be undistracted. Gampopa had said that non-distraction is the path of all the Buddhas. So it has to be sustained without distraction. And Kyobpa then also said that in the beginning, the mind is like a waterfall. So first we meditate and we want to sustain the ordinary consciousness. But when we first try to do that, then it is difficult to just place the mind in just place the mind into this unaltered, restful state at ease. So in the beginning, that's difficult. So the mind just is very turbulent, like a waterfall. So when we look at the waterfall, it comes from, maybe it falls down from a high mountain, and so then the water splashes all over, and it's also very loud. So even though you think that I want to sustain the natural state of the mind, you're constantly taken away by all kinds of thoughts. I'm going here and there. So at this point, we still have to apply an effort in the practice. And then he says in the middle, the mind is like the river Ganges, gently flowing. So then as you continue in your practice to sustain the unaltered natural consciousness, then in the middle, the mind comes down a little bit. It becomes like the river Ganges, like a river where all the water is more contained, collected into one, doesn't splash all over the place, and also it flows gently, doesn't make much noise. So then in the middle, the mind becomes like that. The ordinary consciousness that you sustain is not taken away or kind of doesn't pursue whatever thought arises.
다 대다가 준정도 타마드네 쇼탐지 잠소는 로직도 만진로고 요러와 잠소 침보는 만진로고 요러와 린드 단데 초 강가리 스만로 단티는데 혀소고 처런데 납소고 처르세 요마리 잠소는 로직도 만진로고 요바 인도 테네다 타말 히바데 낭종운드 테네다 타마델라 teni chuni mabu ndipa sungdo chuni mabu ndipa ma ke pang la pe de endu korani ke parche tsewa de ke chi tela kaka ndo chi yewa mi de wan ro slakpar de chi pe de na ha jang ke ta tela chi to pa ta nam do ta sem char chang me bang lu hi ge mai pang la de ne thogwa de ta ta tamar ge hibande ngang jong de teni de ge jun de ya gong de teni ta gong ba de an tar sin de teni chuni ji long de ta ma pang la pen ju ba tar de ne teni ko ran yin ge o de ta ta chuni ma wong on che scenario de ta yong ko ba res.
And then in the end, all the water, it is like all the water converging in the ocean. All the water then becomes one, merges into one. So then once all the water has merged into the ocean, one cannot separate the rivers any longer. One cannot say this is the water from the Ganges River, and this is the water from the east, and this is the water from the west. It all merges into one, into like one taste. And so then in the practice, then as you sustain ordinary consciousness, in the end, it is one recognizes dharmata just like a child coming into the lap of its mother. So the child and the mother have love for each other. So when the child sits on the mother's lap, then there is no separation between them due to the love that they share. And the child is not afraid and doesn't have all kinds of thoughts and is not worried about anything. The child can just stay there relaxed in the mother's lap. And so then when you practice and you continue to sustain the ordinary awareness or the consciousness, and you keep habituating to that, finally when that is brought to perfection, then it is like a child meeting its mother or jumping onto the lap of its mother. One recognizes the vast expanse of dharmata or reality itself, which is just like a child meeting its mother.
Ta ten de ta ngang de chung ala ta mayeng ba de karchim bori hirwa de la gombo phamo ba ke sung ba res tim ba yin mi mahinas ta mayeng ba ke nenga ro de ha ma wona tani Mugumpa la chatami song. The Mugumpa shibuk lega de chin ya kurang yo mare song.
Mi gompa ki lega chiyo mare.
Mugumpa la chatami sidita. Che zorje ke gom jando ya namjung atsu gom tsu tsama. Zorje ke gom rindo rwa. Ta zorwa mi petone be mi lundro gangane. Teni ta tinga la ta gang tarya mugomba ngalan jogo sungko yora ta mugomba shibate chimba yingmi ke nega de mahina teni mugomba shiba tongde ha gogo yo mare son mugomba te tarate nega de hi yo mare son.
So what is important is for the sustaining of this natural state is to not be distracted. Mahamudra also said that if one doesn't know the essential point of mindfulness, of non-distraction, then one will not understand the point of non-meditation. Now, the point of non-meditation is where meditation becomes a state that eventually becomes effortless and spontaneous.
Tenza ko dara saraha ke sunglarwa ran yin tang pe sem la ju mugus zo ju jago yo mar ko ran yin ta pe sem de la wana kanda ji go yo na mazong nam to de ke hi ji ji tro be de sem de hor be de den de da mo lo ja na mazong matang pa mix kan jing be zon ro ji na pa ta ya no de ma ji mazong matang ranga ni de shows ko ran yin korang never going but they are here yo so
and then Saraha has said, do not alter the naturally pure mind. Do not grasp. That is when thoughts proliferate. Do not pursue them. Do not grasp. And also, do not restrain. So do not hold on or do not let go. Just let the mind rest in its natural state.
Then that no percentage banani then masam judar senhu de he jan song yong ko baris then nga lami te banana de ye yo sar la so ba tanda son dan de he mang po nang go yore te tar to na ta tamar ke hiban degarang lta maton rosa yo maris degarang song do go yores degarang song yong go yo bande 간다베는 송고 요리시나 대양 주친 사라하 송바르와 제다르스 징레 purpose 자로네스 점수나가 트레너니 파 퍼스널가 자로 요라 자로네 초남 거르싱 라양 데른 밥스 다 사소 야마가사 갈로코라 자자자자 데니 콤 밥산로 마니 라양 참퍼용 거 요라 대 인도 데니 누브 셈지 都不理解讲但那么多高安说的是可当不得了那么多的了但说是给的这个记住这个落地样可能样落多吧里头有人那么多可能那么多差的有了但等下这边的但他都把伊呢当不 same 当不可能做个当不然确实有的吧可能个 same 你牛嘛老别他可邻居个 same 到这样可能嘛把那嘛都应该给就这样的有嘛嘞是这样当不 same 你牛嘛你都把
So in the sutras of the parameter vehicle, it is explained, there's much discourse on the nature that is inexpressible beyond word and thought. And in the secret mantra, in the even in the highest Vajrayana. And it speaks about the luminosity of the ground. There's also many ways in which this is explained. But ultimately, what they're all talking about is just this one thing, which is the ordinary awareness, the present ordinary awareness. The Siddha Saraha also had said, it is just like a bird, like a bird flying off a ship in the ocean. It might fly around a little bit here and there, but in the end, it will always come back to the ship because there's nowhere else to go. And so, likewise, the desiring mind, although it is a conceptual state, ultimately it will always come back to the original innate awareness, the innate mind, and because there is no other one place to go. So therefore, Sarah had said, it always comes back to the innate mind.
다 된다인 장 조반지 딘송공 게요. tani songko yobare gare songrisina rangri jubandala song ta jawaka jubandala te tawa sin mixa ka tani ke mando songre ta zungwa dan zimbe duba tawa chimbo la so ba ke tani jarba tawa tanda je men ke mando song men tag maris te tawa sin mixa che yo maris karsi ndoba ina da karen rawo je ndogo yorisina tene neluk nipa ton che tene ningbo konde nisme pe songjok yi shis ti rang ngo to patela tawa to sen ta tawa sena ra te to de tawa to la ro te zam jok yore son tan de la yang rang zo ge nipa ton je konde ni mi je songjok zan de yang ma se semna la ba se ya chenpo sa bo je tin ro yora ya nipa ton je tang konde yermi je sungjok lu zedi ngarang zo gang semnang la ta hi tamar ge hiba zon do ya den la manda wa ji hyan ro yoro semna ji chimbo ro ji hyan ro yoro nda maris chimbo ro tanda ji tumbo ro den ro la sam tang ning ge yo mari de gap so konde ni mi ge sungjok sen jo te kare la lam do yoro sem konde yermi song do jo sa te 다다 타마르 시반데레스 다 타마르 시반데 센데 타마르 시바 마주바 다 마주 라와 야데바 데와지 요랑아랑 타마르 시반데 간라 단 타르티 타마르 시바 다 마주 베네로 녀티 뉴마라오데 하 공용데 다 가레 하 공용 거 요르시나 남중 아초게 do parsin tikba ne hyepa ke ji rangyin usar scenari da tungba ni la so ba ke da jan do sa deang mayimba sanga ke lami ke nang ne ye usar la so ba dang wang yepa ka de tong gi hi sen yang chi muksa ning zin do ya deang mayimba 단 동안이게 싱람니 싱람신데 배가침보 차 차거유사래 동안이게 싱람니 동안이게 싱람니 용어 다 가르쳐한 거 요르시나 되니 다 가장 공도 휴바나이 똑바지다 먹고나이 손 되니 소소게 잡라메 소소라니 랑고테 야바게 다 간tar 타말 그 히바 다 마진용무 이시 단 데레 데랑 차도 요바리스 단 데라 간tar 디 콘데 예미지 송죽 세나라 단라베 타니다 그 요바리스
So we refer to it as the Oh, so Jikten Sumgön also had said that within in my lineage, not referring to the Kagyu, it is not asserted that there is a view, and what he means is that this term view, we don't call anything, we don't give anything the name. This is a view, because all such views are views of dualistic grasping at subject and object. If there's anything that is asserted, it is the essence of the ultimate essence of the mind's nature, and that is it is referred to as the primordial wisdom, which is the inseparable union of samsara and nirvana. And so when that is realized, one can call that having realized the view. So this inseparable union of samsara and nirvana, but this is a term that might sound very high. I think it's a big concept, and one might think that it must be something else, that is something else than the ordinary uncontrived consciousness. But one shouldn't think that it is anything else than that. It is just that. So it is, we call it this inseparable non-dual union of samsara and nirvana. But really what we are talking about is just the ordinary present consciousness that is left in its natural state, uncontrived, unaltered. And then ultimately in the end, one recognizes this ordinary uncontrived consciousness. And so now it is referred to as, in the sutra vehicle of the paramitas, it is referred to as the natural luminosity or emptiness. But even these are just labels. So it doesn't possess actually any of such labels, the ultimate nature. So in the Vajrayana, the highest path of the Vajrayana, it is the ground luminosity, or in the fourth empowerment, speak about the wisdom of bliss emptiness. But ultimately, these are just terms referring to one and the same nature. And so that is really the essential point, that whether it is the path of the sutras or the tantras, it comes down to the same thing to be recognized, as we mentioned before, yesterday, the previous day, was that to realize that one needs to have devotion. So it is one's root guru who introduces one to this ordinary consciousness. And then what is to be recognized is the uncontrived, unaltered, innate, primordial awareness, the present mind. So this is just what is given this name, the inseparable union of samsara and nirvana.
Tande ona ndo parsin tikpani shepe ranjin usar tongani laso batang nga lami ke tara dedong ki yishi sejun duso teni tartok tawa mariwe sena tartok tawa ri se chokuyore ona kanda karejin ngete tawa lando yore shubayina marang zoge che tsola ya chimbo tang nga chun jindang ko ton nor songwa res korang ye nelo yimba shila nga zoge ye nelo la nelo tar to manjin ne teni chimbo tang zangbo tang lekpo la so ro mambo ta song ro ba teletin ne korang teni ngarang zoge ditone da tsola pa garbo ke teni singlam shin mixer che ngo tondo ko ya te nenga te cha de yoris.
And so then one may wonder, that being said, so is it then, when we speak about in the sutra, the paramita vehicle of the sutras, if we speak about the natural luminosity or emptiness, or in the highest path of the secret mantra, when we speak about the wisdom of bliss emptiness, and one might wonder, isn't that then the ultimate? So is it not the ultimate view then, since we say that it doesn't have any of such designations? So one can say, of course, that it is the ultimate view, but what I'm saying here is that once we grasp at something, it is our grasping, our kind of the way we see things is what is mistaken. So we are not, what the mistake that we make is that we are not recognizing the natural state for what it actually is. And the reason why we do that is because we superimpose greatness and excellence upon it. We think it's something so great and excellent that we're not actually recognizing it for what it is.
Oh yeah, then the Chitanta he gonna hyogo yoru that is tsunda. Then the yin gets to the Uma chimbo laws of Batamje, that Tawan Tartori and then Jikten Sumgön then Topa per the Simbala Tawa Topa and Dimba Sunguyo Sondoa. There that don't that huge Simbarwa.
So now I'm coming back to the beginning, where it says of the statement now. So the reason for saying all of that is because people claim that the great Madhyamaka and so forth are the ultimate view, and so therefore, in response to that, Jikten Sumgön says, "View is to be endowed with realization."
Oh yeah, that you the Jebate. Chimpo Sumje Marek Topin Choso. There, Dandala Tambo Yang Yingi Yitsa with you. Tawa, Topa, Serendu, Topa, Serendini, Chuni, Tombani, the Topa, Data, Chimbo Sum, Sida Uma Chimbo, Zopa Chimbo, Chaja Chimbo, Data Vichilla, Killing Yikioris. Then Jikten Sumgön and the Capso, Chimbo Sumje Marek Bade, Topan Chores.
Then we come to Vajra statement number 8, where Jikten Sumgön says, realization is not even reached by the three greats. That is in response to people who claim that the realization of true reality or emptiness is only surpassed by the three greats. And Jikten Sumgön says that it's not surpassed, it's not even reached by the three greats.
Chimbo Sumje Mare Hibande Chimbo Sanin Simba Deke Magubar Shibutondarwa. Then the Tambo Uma Chimbo Shivande Chitang Taiya the Java, you me da che la suban Taiya the Java Ran Yin Tombani De Daviche Yikiores in and Dekiyang, the Nidika Tarate Titawa Topandala Maguba Chad Yuris De Yambijumsin de Do Tingzin Jarbole Yu Dang Michi Jawa Ta Yin de Devin Zang Dam Zang Dayang Ta De Seren Tan de Dan Nangbang ne Kepe Ulang Nebar Majao Song.
So what this is saying is that the ultimate view is not defiled or touched by the grasping at the terms of the three greats. And one of those greats is first the great Madhyamaka, or the great middle way, And so it is said that the Great Middle Way is free from the four extremes. It is free from existence and non-existence, eternalism and nihilism. So it speaks about emptiness. And the ultimate view, the realization of the view, however, is untouched, undefiled by any of such concepts. So then it says in the Samadhi Raja Sutra, existence and non-existence are extremes. Likewise, pure and impure are also extremes. Therefore, having abandoned such extremes, neither should the wise one dwell in the middle.
다 대인의 차자 침보 선다 양 침보 그 로단에 간다라 드니 취탐제 증우부 희진내로데 드니 사동 송족다 대답은도네 누바게 대답대게야 또반달라 레요 마레 송레 간신 침보 신진바디 우천이 zonde 드니 따와양다 차마송 된자 드니 다 따라 차자 침보 세는 거 대게양 드니 디 양다 따완달라 레요 마레스.
And then there is a second greatness is the Great Seal or Mahamudra. And so Mahamudra in general maintains that the original state of the fundamental nature of all phenomena is luminosity and emptiness. And that also does not even reach the ultimate view. Because once one is grasping at anything, at greatness, then it is still not the authentic view. So therefore, this, the term of like even the notion of Mahamudra is a concept, and this concept is not the ultimate view.
Tane da teo do zoba chimbo se da zoba chimbo se ba de chutamje ma zoba me ba ma changwa me ba 그 동리바 마 changwa me du de changwa ra chutamje yon zoba chang de ba don da yang de da la yang zoba chimbo si ba da jarne tene ran yin ke yang ko do da yang ko yu ba yin chang tene de ke yang da ra de tene semju ngon don da la ra yo ma re song wa re.
So then the third greatness is the great perfection. And here we're using concepts such as there is nothing like all phenomena are such that one cannot perfect them any further and nothing goes beyond that. It's perfect. But even that is a concept or a superimposition. And for this reason, it also does not reach the actual nature of the mind.
한다라 인장 고바 파모드바 그 송네 sarmjuge 닝마 틱바고 양다 군조 삽지른바데 족바 진부 베네 충신이 차자 진부 베네 촌드미 베인 촌난 주제 장바인송.
And regarding this, the Lord Mahamudra said, the new translation period has the 4 Tantra classes. The ancient translation period has the 9 vehicles. The pure surface level of truth includes the 10 Bodhisattva stages. The example of great perfection is like the great Garuda. And the example of great seal is that which shows that it cannot be illustrated. But if one's understanding is illustrated by examples, it is only constructed.
다 대인도 베나 삶을 주제 예나 다 잡을 주 남저 남이 주스 주대야 컴페런 벤던 되니 야르 양진 제난라 장든진 또바데 야 파랑 그 여러와 다 남저 남이 주제스데 오다 휴지 임바 Ta de la jinram de zoram ni yodu. Oh, ta jinram le zoram de karchewa. De zangwa. Zoram de lan chinje den chimi ni do chimi zoram de karchewa. De ta be jinzine. Tenin chen yong go yoro is. Kain sa luze cha yong go yoro wa. Cha ja chimbo la du luze mayin ba cha de yoro wa. De inza luze cha ro go yoro is. 다 조바 침보 시반달라양 족칭 특바른바 거 송거 요르바 족칭 특바른바 건데 치 특바 솜시 맞초다 ngaso nanching jan sei tikpa som ro sei tikpa som dan de nintu ge tikpa ranja ge tikpa jansam ge tikpa se tela sei tikpa som se yogo yore deni nang tikpa de la yang se nang ni se se ge yore de de nang tikpa de la se nang ni se se sei tikpa de deni zhe uba yoga sin song yong ge yore wa de tikpa
Tamboti kara tia
zhe uba yoga
tia
zhe uba yoga
tia pegen ala kara
zhe yuge na karen ro na chopu zhe de na kar ta ta gu zhe pa chen yin re yin ya tara lejar ke ngarang chati ya na tar ta ta gu zhe men
chari yamar kriya kriya ore re
zhe uba yoga tikpa chok cha so teni maha yoga anu yoga teni de nang tan chod jor ba de teni ad yoga se ta tikpa de ren je de ya comparison ne jebjang song ma ro je song ro yo ro de yin za teni ta chimbo ge yang da ge ne lon de la chimbo ge re yo ma re se chimbo ge ba de lu je cha ro yo ro se de cha ma
So there, in the new tantric system, we have the 4 classes of tantra, starting with the Kriya Tantra up until the Anuttara Yoga Tantra, so from the lowest to the highest tantras. And so this is how we perceive those stages of tantras. One is higher than the other. And so then we have this view of this is higher than this one, this is the highest, this is Anuttara Yoga Tantra, this is the unsurpassed, the highest Yoga Tantra. It's higher than the others. And then there is within that we have the generation and the completion stages, and these are highest, these are most important. And within the completion stage, for example, there is a completion stage with characteristics and without characteristics. And then we think that the completion stage without characteristics is supreme. So we have this fixation in our mind that like one thing is more supreme than the other thing. And that is the conceptual mind. And for this reason, the mind is actually in bondage because it is not beyond mental fabrication. It is not beyond the intellect. And Mahamudra is said to transcend mental fabrication or transcend the intellect. Or in Dzogchen, we speak about the 9 levels, 9 vehicles. And so there is the outer level, and the outer 3 vehicles consisting of the Shravakas, the Pratyakas or the hearers and solitary realizers, and then the Bodhisattvas. And then there's the inner classes of Tantra, which also consist of 3, which are referred to as the Kriya, Upa, and Yoga Tantras. So now we have 6 vehicles. And then the remaining 3, the highest, so-called highest 3, are the Maha Yoga, Anu Yoga, and then the Supreme Adi Yoga. And we think that each of these vehicles is higher than the other, and so it gets higher and higher. And actually, these are concepts in our mind. And for this reason, because it is mental fabrication, it's a concept that we create, it does not reach the actual ultimate nature of the mind.
Ta wama chimbo sayong bo kapsu tene se zongwa tamje chok maduba shalon no jang la su ba chok chak madub de chami de tinlam ban nang zimbe semde keji ge tuge chak maduba keji chami de tinlam phamne kantar je ta wama chimbo da semjang ba karen nan du so ge yang je chami da dala tinlam ban thar toni de tinlam ba la so ba yong go yorwa dan de tamje yang tene yang da to ba de cha ge yong ma re ma cha bu jum sin de ko lo ge da ben tene lo ko ton tinlam ban lo ge ji yong go yudu ta tene lo ge je song ba yin na ta da donc ne long da de ngon chu ma ta ba de jum sin ka re sin na to ma ta ba de jum sin ka re sin na tene dara de lopung dara de shanti dewa ke song ne dondam lo yu ju yo mi song dondam shibade ta lok ji zo ju jaya yo de ba ta lok che je yong ba de cha ge yong mar da yin na kunzup cha de yoris dondam lo yu ju yo me lo ne kunzup yin mar do so lok je ya ba chama kunzup cha ro yoris song bar wa
And so the great middle way, there it says that on the outer level, the outer grasped at object are not to be grasped at because they are untouched by, connected to direction, like east and west and so on. And then the inner mind, the inner grasping or the perceiving mind is unreached, untouched by the concept of time, moment to moment time. So whether we speak about the Madhyamaka middle way or the Chitta Matra, the mind-only school and so on, ultimately what is ascertained is emptiness. What is to be realized is emptiness. And still, such concepts arising in the mind are not the realization of the ultimate nature of the mind, because the nature of the mind through these tenets also is ascertained through the intellect. And whatever is ascertained through the intellect or the proliferating mind is not the recognition or the realization of the ultimate nature. And so the reason is that Acharya Shantideva says the absolute is beyond the sphere of the proliferating mind. So the ultimate truth is beyond the intellect. The proliferating mind is held to be relative truth.
Tayan de tabache tamar ke kiba nyungman de o ta chaja chimbo ka mare zopa chimbo ka mare uma chimbo ka mare na teni ke che jiang ringtang me de wan da chi cha de samare we samba yin na de ya maris jetang ta hi gong de kiba na yingrang so ke chaja chimbo nang de dongdang ke ne lo ting ke yori tartok ngarang zola goya de tinke yore tartok chuju go ran yin go de yongsu zo ba ma chang me ba tinke yore de ngarang zu lo ke de la ro ta ne yang ko chimbo ze ta ya ba ri ma do de na yin go zo ba chimbo de rang ri zo ba chimbo na ma tin ba ma ri ma zo ba chimbo na chang la ma na ba tin ba ri de yang chimbo si ro ta ne de ni de la lu ze zu ya ba ro ta kan dar de bo ma chimbo ji ba ji jang cha de yore 다 간다를 가렌로 차도 요르스나 당가 중문에 게제 돈 담바 센두 되니 독제바 그 송반데 그 로코도 롱담보데 로본 독제바 배 가레송에스나 소마스 뉴마스 라반데서 론데 차자 침보인 소 로렌데 차자 침보.
And so then you might think then, so then if the ordinary innate natural state is unreached by Mahamudra, Dzogchen or Madhyamaka, then are Mahamudra, Dzogchen and Madhyamaka without any value, those teachings? So that's also not what is being said, because as you mentioned before, Mahamudra, for example, does show the ultimate nature of the mind. So it shows us what we ultimately need to realize completely and nothing left aside. So the ultimate nature of Dharmakaya is completely shown through the teachings of Mahamudra. But then what we do with our mind is we superimpose greatness upon it, calling it great and so on. And then the same is true for Dzogchen. In the Dzogchen teachings, nothing is lacking. Everything is shown completely. Everything is taught completely. But then again, with our proliferating mind, we are superimposing greatness upon this and making Dzogchen a concept. And then the same we do with Madhyamaka. And so then the Master Doktsipa or Kotalipa said, this fresh, innate, absolute nature is the Mahamudra that is beyond the proliferating mind.
Tana yinke drupjin saraha ke sonne tamar shipa nying us ses chodruk dana dewa jume che so.
And then moreover, Sarah has said, ordinary consciousness awakens in the middle of the mind. When one has purified the six sense consciousnesses, bliss is without end.
Ta tenda indu teni ko gandar tamar ke shipa nying us sendu dan dala gangre jeri ndere sen teni ma sam ju dar dang ju ba da trawa inza teni ma sam ju me hira parasin song yung ko ne do te cha de yorwa.
So then when this ordinary consciousness awakens from within your mind, within your heart, then because this nature transcends expression, it is beyond words and thought. That is why it is referred to as the perfection of wisdom.
Deninda tarate dan de tawende kantar tamar ke shiba majunyung shiba ndela deni je gambo pa ke sonde ta de chetabe shiri sina deni ja karyang mache son ta che choso 송아 마인바 데니 제바라 소바 다다힌 제네 데니 제 도단데 야보리스 잔탄다고 줄 롱송아 마인바 데이터 자카양 마체소 리카양 말홍소 데니 랑가타완데 단 잉가타와 데신 즉 소다 리스차 소만라고 데이터양 마인바 데니 고카양 망가소 칙 침탄다고 줄 롱네 데니 제아미 대완다고 즉 데이터양 마인바 데니 띵가양 마제소 양지 따분탄다고 줄 띵산다고 줄라 띵네 즉 도동도 데데와 제 따반다고 데데와 데이터양 마인바 단다 자와 데니 폭가양 마데소 데지 셈나라 제 제조글 간다르다 생구스 제 레완다고 직진네 제 레베 폭다고 제 가힐네 데바 데이터양 마인바스 Tene cho 가양 마도소. 다 cho 가양 마도소 침보 차자 침보 우마 침보 족바 침보 라소바게 데이터를 간라양 마도바. 된 베강게장 춤네 봐. 단데 슈지리인데 지 레잡보 다버리 스네 야지 다버리 자르스는 라보요가서 데이터베지 되니 슈지 사보 차보 띵보 요데바 데라고 그 베지 리네더니 용로야 대양미 봐 베강게양 춤바 문에봐 되니 주바 강기장 도드메 펩소 주바 시반데 다 마인다 책당 되니 주바 손서 드링 바들 주바 라고 요로와 다 데이터 강 주바 강기장 도드메 펩바스 다 데이터 베지 차도 요래 손에 뉴무 시반데
So then Khenpo explained what this uncontrived, ordinary consciousness really is. And so first he said, so the ultimate nature is not diminished by any description such as huge or great. So there is no thought of this is like conceptual thought of this is supreme, this is great. One doesn't fall into such a description of the view is the greatest, and it does not take any side. So it is not one doesn't fall into any like any biased kind of views. So one doesn't fall into one basically does not conceptually ascertain it. And then it is not confined by any gate, so one does not fall into a direction of like nihilism. And then the next one is eternalism. It is not supported by any base. One does also not conceptualize it as some kind of truly existing entity that possesses any true existence. So eternalism, it is not directed toward any goals. So there is no hope and so forth within the mind with regard to it. And then it does not belong to any side. That is, there is no concept of any greatness of Mahamudra or Madhyamaka or Dzogchen and so forth. And it cannot be illustrated by any example. So we say that, for example, it is like a king of mountains. The view is the highest view and so on. It is so profound. It is a king on a mountain and so on. So it cannot be illustrated by any example. And it is not encountered through any verbal expression. So verbal expression includes names and words and any kind of concept. So it cannot be expressed in any way. So that is the nature of the innate natural consciousness.
다 대인자 되네 된탈 가르송 요르스나 곰종 그 시바히 직수제송 다 곰종 그 시바 센지데 마잉 바리 간다 dimban 켄나 곰랑 케송 지딘 송공 송르와 다 수수랑우니 착진 창고한로 가르스나 라마 게비시니라 대바 다능 요바 데레 인증원에 다 라마 게비시니 그 독재와 진부토네 되네 진바 중당 그다 당화지 여러와 Dan deke timder teni chun zong yung ba yina. Teni ta nelok chaja chimbo sen ta nelok ngo ma chu nyung ma shibande teni susu la ranchi su yo de ba. Dan de che ya chuka dorjin chang ke tukju la yo ba ke nelok de la ya che zang ju jiang mi ba. Ma tata che nyawa narmi tawila dungar nyang yo ba simjin je ge ju la yo ba tenda ke nyung ma ninji ji be shi senandra tenda ke hiba de la yang ma jiang ngin ro ya mi ba. Ta te tawe che zangi tang chi tsoke namba thamje da char deba de tata rang yu deba. Tan de ngo chunglok da chontang ha mao be lin deba. Ha kon ne yang ngo de chung manu ne zungzhu manu ba tang teni pa ta nyom la ya ba nduso ke teni ngarang so da ta ha jang nyesa na yu deba ke teni tenda ke che yi yin chi no tong le ja tong chen bom le la ba ke teni chu ju ge ngo de teni ngarang so ke che ta gandar nami la ya ba ke teni ling de ba ri ma to ke korang nguni nga chor che nyerain ra wa ta zangin ra wa chiang ji ke me ba ta te ta we yin zang teni ta ngarang so ke che ta nyamni la yogo ya ke ne wan te cha de yo res.
um, and so all of this is ascertained by means of these quotations and by reasoning. And so also Jikten Sumgön had said, when one is skilled in mindful presence, and then one is skilled in meditation practice. So this arises from actual meditation practice. So from one's own perspective, the criteria that need to be complete is a faith and a pure perception toward the guru. And then from the side of the guru possesses great love for the disciple, and with great love then grants the instructions. And so when these causes and conditions come together, are complete, and then we need to sustain the natural state of Mahamudra, or the innate state of the mind, which is something that is already present within us. And so that is to say that, for example, the natural state of the mind of the Dharmakaya Vajradhara is not any better. And the innate primordial awareness of a sentient being in the lowest of hells is not any worse. So the ultimate nature is without good and bad, or better and worse. And it is the present consciousness that we have right now. It's already there, but we do not either we do not know how to sustain it, we don't recognize it, and then we don't know how to sustain it, or even if we do know how to sustain it, we lack the diligence, and then we still don't sustain it. We just let it be kind of in an indifferent state. So actually it is very close, it's right there, but then we don't sustain it. This natural state is even of Dharmakaya is even greater than hundreds and thousands of wish-fulfilling jewels, and yet we neglect it, we ignore it. But even if we do that, itself remains there without any bias toward good and bad, and it's always right there. So that's the reason why it is necessary to engage in practice.
Yang da nga ke hachang ke bepsor chimbo ko to ne da gombe nyamslin bala so ba yong yore te yang tarate che rewa che to topa che me pa ka le khabo yin za rewa che mola kare ne de yore sina che chimbo che ko gomang thom do go san che gompang che hyu che top do yo san so so ranju lu yo pe ke ma chu nyu mu ke ne lo de pa ya ne de le los chu ba che yu nang do che hyan ne teni yang da ka ble hyu ja ne da nang ro yo ro ten te yin za da che chuni ke ne lo to pa la teni ko ka ble jab de ba che la tha ring bo cha de ba che cha do yo ro ba teni yang lala ne che nekap ke che nyamne la suba tin ne che tingin zin la suba ke che dewan tim ji yong ban da la teni cha ne dan de chin thar to ke ta wa yin hang ru hyan ne den de ta ba che ke tho ni teni ti yin chu la ta che yang salam ko to pa da wa ji du ya yo ba na wa ma hyar ne teni de ta ba che yin ru yu zang teni ngarang zo la yu ba ke number jube shiram de biju tang de teni da gantar ya che norsa tan trsa la so ba ke want hirma som ba thoni teni rang thu go yo ba de da karchim bo cha de yo ba res.
And then there are some who do make a great effort in meditation practice, but they encounter difficulties due to having hopes and fears and so on. So at the peak of hope, or highest hope, is to attain a high state of like realization, and we think we have attained something, something high to be attained. And by grasping in this way, we are neglecting the natural, innate state of our mind that is already present. And we think that there is something higher to be gained. And then we practice hard to reach this state. But actually, in doing that, we are actually distancing ourselves from the actual natural state of the mind. And so then there is also others, some who engage in meditation practice, and then some temporary, due to having achieved a certain state of samadhi, of meditative absorption, some temporary states of bliss might arise, and then one becomes attached to these states, and one believes that this is the ultimate view. And so by regarding this temporary meditative experience as the ultimate view, then one doesn't look beyond that there are actually more qualities of the Buddhas and the paths to be accomplished. So then what happens is that the wisdom awareness that is present within us already is not actually put to use, and rather we become mistaken and confused. So it's important to not fall under the sway of that, and it is important therefore to recognize one's own true face, one's true nature.
Ta dorji song gabate tusam gomb ton hyogur yin song tan de kaps yang tusam ba namba ke kare gong yoresin ta che tusam che yaba ke tuba samba gomba che yomba ti ke laji ke tan rewe chi yu de ba de tan tharto ke ta tawa jena re to pa tharto ke to za de tere suamne ta te ta che gom song gom ro yu de 다 참에 대 검로 요리 효요 말때 송코 요 말이데 다 단다 용도 키 요장 송코 요리다 때네 다 델라양 투상 곰버게 다 가르라고 투상 곰버게 다 냠니 처든 네드 눈바제 내가라고 때 제타와 인도 말롱바 이나 Tani khorsa iya tang korsa som se yore da de sola. Tani yongro ko yore song.
Korsa shi shosa kare korsa shosa som korsa shi.
Khordo sa iya yore ne mantene hyong ji ni khorsa khordo sa iya tang kordo sa som.
So then the Vajra statement number 9 says the emptiness of studying, reflecting, and practicing contains traps and sidetracks. And so that is in response to people's claim. And so these are not specific people, but it's just saying that this is something that could arise in somebody's mind. And so some people might claim that those realizations that arise from listening, reflecting, and practicing are the final realization. And so this is because those, if one thinks in this way, one doesn't reach the vital point just exactly as it is in one's experience of listening, reflecting, and practicing. And so for this reason, it happens that people stray into 4 traps and 3 sidetracks.
Da jirdan di kabzu tartok toba tawa da toba ti ton song du da ndra song ku yore ma do yang tuba che pa cham la yang ping sam je ma cha ba yo ba do da tin chu mang bo na song yo ba ra wa tani samba da gomba na so ping sam je ma cha ba yo ba re yin yang dan di kabzu perna 제 투바 세바 이나양 골로 틀로 잠다고 제 차송 아마도 세란줄을 잘마도 봐 골로 틀로 잠 그 지선 장송아 되니 삼반데 양제 되니 수소게 간다르제 다지 그 간다양 짐바 요데반다고 제 힘바 요데바다지 드라그 토니 제 간다르제 소소그 셈낭라 제 린지 랑긴 린지 제난다 다제 다 다랑랑 좀 다든지 단진도 탐제 제 랑긴 내가 원 세나 랑긴 린지도 차앙 요르와 난 데서 탐제 당제 마더브 토니 되네 제 라퍼도 제 차당 라서 보왕당 제 담닌다 라서 보왕 데서 토네 제 투바다 삼바진 용고 바당 되네 곰반데 양지 제검다베지라 파히네 되네 제바지지지 제바지 부동라오들 강라바데 타톡겠다 다완라오질 진로안디 된 데서다 더 효사하시네 영로부 좀신 데려와
So something is called a trap here, because now here, so in this context here, we're speaking about the view or realization from an ultimate perspective. Of course, in general, it is taught in many sutras and commentaries that merely to hear the teachings is of an incredible benefit. And likewise, it is of a great benefit to reflect and to meditate on the teachings. But here, the trap one can fall in when it comes to listening is that one leaves what one has heard as a mere intellectual understanding, and one doesn't actually apply it to one's mind. And so in this way, one follows mental constructs, like mere intellectual terms and so on, that are not actually applied to one's mind. And in the context of reflecting, then it is possible there could be the trap of there still being clinging and attachment in the mind. So there's this natural clinging to a self, and when that is not liberated, then one may reflect while being bound by attachment and aversion and being controlled by various conceptual designations and so on. And then also when it comes to the actual practice, like meditation practice, for example, one may become attached to the analytical meditation, and one keeps analyzing and analyzing, thinking that one has really reached the highest view. But this actually is not the case, because one is still analyzing. So this also therefore constitutes a trap.
Then the dambo shorsa yananke dambo de his healer shorwas. His healer shorwashi banda da Karerisina slog now under that tamji dimi the dinlam pandu. Then nang similar rale, sem the tomba namkata son the tomba in the Hindu, his healer was that the person Tibaba tamjila shukure. Da Nanyamni chinkin tamji na Choga to Songola Kaduna Om Shunin, then Janam Baza Sobawa Emakoham, the Shuninda, Seta, Tombani, the Takbala Sobala Mibanzine, then Tera, there Zamlatini, go, Shine, there are some Chono Shine. Neon Bandela, Tamji, that he's a healer sugar.
So the first of the four traps is being trapped in the fundamental nature of the knowledge objects. And so here one might have ascertained that all outer appearances, like any true existence, and that mind is empty like space, but there is an attachment, a clinging to the emptiness. So this is mainly speaking to those who follow the paramita vehicle. And then those who follow the tantric vehicle, when they engage in sadhana ritual practice. For example, in the beginning, there's often this mantra, Om Shunyata, and so forth, the emptiness mantra, where everything is purified into emptiness. And so then there's this concept of emptiness arising that we fixate on. So then we think that this is the supreme understanding, everything is empty. So then there's this fixation toward emptiness. And so
Tani Badel, Jendubs Hrovas, Jendubs, the Karesina, Mubola Mumik Jenden, and the song of Mubola. Get chess on it.
Get you, Chaso.
Aleh Nibala, Jendubs Hrovas, Jendubs, Sibade, Jendem, the pen Mubola Mumik Jendem. Oh, tang ngubon zin bungunzin da tamje tang kowalan chinziri sen tene datelang ngumi ke paje jenrawo de tamna draven tang ngunjiang jedang ta kadam givhini tamje samje machaba re de yina da tananyamli nangkin na tanda yongkho yosarwa che ngubol ngumi le jendem khintela pela de kadam givhini tamje yadwa de tabri suwaina jendep shwa so.
And then the second trap is being trapped in sealing. So here one seals like a thing with a non-thing. So basically when something actually is a non-thing, something doesn't actually exist, one says that this is how it is. Like one says that, oh, samsara really is bondage, and so on. And so an example that is given is that, for example, practitioners of the Kadampa and so forth. So actually in the past, the Kadampas were really incredible practitioners, but just here, maybe there have been some who were known to grasp at things, to seal things with non-things, or to grasp at the duality of like what is actually a non-thing to be a thing.
Da sumba de la nimbor hwa so nimbor hwa hima da yang Sumgön batamje ta tusam chindong the so tamje re the so la song ko wa dan the so la song de pen nyumong ro je ji na o ta de la je nyumong de ji song si de ni bo ro je che ni bo che ne ni bo de ga ta ko nyumong de la kap de jang de nyumong de pa hian de ni da nyumong ba le tor song si je pen je kan dar je nam to de nyumong tamje de ni 제 남카다 가성 참여도 절송 스만라고 제 데이터베 전제 맞지 단데 저 탐지는 인볼로 효과서
And then third is being trapped in the antidote. So that is speaking to those who are actually reflecting and practicing meditation. And so then when an afflictive emotion arises, one sees, oh, an afflictive emotion has arisen, and then one looks for an antidote. And then so then one applies the antidote to remove the affliction, and then the affliction is removed, and then one thinks, oh, now it is being liberated. The thought or the affliction has become empty like space, it has all disappeared, I've applied the antidote, and so on. So such a thinking or grasping is to be trapped in the antidote.
테니 예바데 다 람드 효과서 다 람드 효과인지 반데 람구드스 돈이라서 바 곰드 단 레버 값이 제 추주 것이 잠보지 토용 거 요바 레와지 않는 다 데이터베지 임발로 근데 람드 효과서
And then fourth is being trapped in the path. That is, for example, when one practices meditating on emptiness, then one might have some hopes to obtain, the great state of the Dharmakaya and so forth. So that is being trapped in the path.
다 고사스 효사 이야도 휴신 다 고사스는 고사 당보데 가르 대와라 고바스 다 대와라스 나라서 땡인지 곰데 데살 땡인지 진다 곰자한테 디 냠제야요라 데살 모토 냠솜 다 대외 냠라 희인도 다 대와 그 냠데 되니 소소 대외 냠 샤르데 소소 주폴란 총적 대와이나 대와 젠도 송도 데이터 대와 요사라 다 대외 냠라 희인 송아이나 된 도캄라 제와렌도르 송도와 도캄라 콘도 요리스 코르스디다 도캄라 젠도야 마도 트로토요 마르와 되니 서버 냠 시바데 康巴东巴那다우 샤와타 그 산냠 젠 베도코랑 다다 용거를 송도와 다 데이터 산냠라 제 희인도 되니 된 주캄라 제와렌도 다 주캄라 콘도 시데 제와렌도 송요라 다 마도바냠 시바데 다 오야 대와의 사와니를 까블메 바지 다 마도바 시바데 되니 제양트미 토메와 지번도 다 망보 차자침보 공키는 나때 망보 용거를 송도가 되니 제 내가로도 하마와 되니 그 네 희자 강그 춤바메 제 사치몰라는 요한도 소과 린당도 제 노르인데 되니 제 당아서 가게로는 에렌드레 지양 미대완도 제 할라마소나 효롱니 마데 제 지도 담 참아파세 대정도 제 차를 단데 나라서 춘이 세살라 효와당 드소 그 지막하게 제 바레 레타데 체송한도 에렌드레 지양 미대와 드소 담니 노사만 보여와 다 대인자 다 모토 발라 거송아이나 데네 모토바 냠라 신송아이나 zu미 kana 제와렌도 송도와 난 데다부 그 토니 고사숨 보던데 레송
So these are the four traps. And then there's 3 sidetracks. And the first one is the sidetrack of bliss, being attached to bliss. And so here, so generally when we meditate, one goes through different meditative experiences such as bliss, clarity, and non-conceptuality. And so if when bliss arises and one becomes attached to the experience of bliss, then, for example, it is said that when one is in this blissful state in meditation, and even if one's body would be pierced with a weapon, it would just feel like bliss. One wouldn't feel any pain. So it becomes like that. So this great bliss arises. And then when one becomes attached to this bliss, then that becomes a sidetrack. Then one takes birth in the desire realm, but one does not attain liberation. And then the second sidetrack is related to the meditative experience of luminosity. And so that is when one experiences luminosity, then the experience is like the moon that shines into a building, a room. So there's great clarity. And when one clings to this experience of luminosity or clarity, then one takes birth in the form realm. And then there is the sidetrack of that's related to the experience of non-thought, non-conceptuality. And so here one has already overcome the clinging to bliss and luminosity. And so then one overcoming these, one comes to a state of non-conceptuality where it seems that there is just nothing whatsoever. So there is no thought whatsoever. And this is actually the sidetrack that happens a lot to practitioners of Mahamudra. And so then due to this being a sidetrack, one lacks any recognition of it. So this also is explained in the Mahamudra prayer. Then there is this like subtle clinging to a complete non-existence of anything. So there's nothing whatsoever there. Everything has become exhausted. There's no sense of happiness and sadness or pleasure and pain. And so this is also what it means to be sidetracked into the exhaustion, into the dharmata. When things become completely exhausted, one can still go astray. And if one does, then one is said to take birth in the realm of formlessness.
Da tenda yin zang da lobu yin xin yin bu ke gare song do xu ba yin na. Ji mi ji dang dong xi dang da mi ji dang dong ba ni min bu yi ji gang gong ba den ne da na da gong ba wo so.
And regarding this, the Acharya Yanagarbha said, one who practices with an inferior mind, unborn, empty, selfless, and emptiness, therein practices only the self.
Da tena ya go ni.
Let's take a break.
Chisu chukje ba
Until 11.
Jambar Baba Jedar Jamba Dang Gunda Zambo Dean Dejan de Da Gunje Jesu Dalo Jegiwa de Da Danjera de Ngo to Son Jebe Jawa Tan Jejong Ho Agan Lan Jodo Habat Dagi Geva Zawan de Gunjong Zombo Jesu de Ngo War Je Simjin Neba Jinye Ba Nir de Nele Tajer Jen Roven Nena Malab May every being ailing with disease be freed at once from every malady. May all sickness that afflicts the living be instantly and permanently healed. Thank you very much.